Hello, and welcome to our video looking at the main causes of World War I. In this video, we'll look at the kind of long-term causes of the war, the kind of initial spark of the war with the assassination of the Archduke, and then some of the new technologies that's going to be really impactful for this war. All right, let's get started with our main causes. Now, when I say main causes, I'm using main as an acronym here to represent militarism, alliances, imperialism, and nationalism that all builds up there at the late 19th century, early 20th century that sparks the tension that will lead to World War I. We're going to look a little bit closer at each one of those ideas now. So, militarism. Europeans had been building up armies as a result of the Industrial Revolution and imperialism. So, you need large standing armies to go out and, conquer places very far from your homeland. And several of these countries start to increase the size of their military that they're leaving in Europe. And so it kind of becomes a race to see who can create the strongest, largest military forces. And you'll see nobody does this bigger than Germany. Germany is going to not only increase their army, but also their navy because they wanted to be able to reach and protect their colonies if they needed to. So we started to also see there at the end of the 19th century that a series of alliance systems had started being built between kind of two sides of Europe. You've got the kind of traditional, power holders, and then you've got kind of these new emerging powerful countries that are going to be making alliances with each other. And it all really boils down to these two main alliance systems, the Triple Entente and the Triple Alliance. Triple Entente, Britain, France, and Russia, and then the Triple Alliance of Germany, Austria, Hungary, and Italy. Here are pictures of the leaders of these countries during this time period. And if you're looking there on the left of the Triple Entente and you look at King George V of Britain and Nicholas II of Russia, and you think, is that the same picture, just copied and pasted? It's not. They're first cousins. Their mothers are sisters, and they have some like weird family resemblance. You know who was also their first cousin? Wilhelm II of Germany. So all three of these guys are related to Queen Victoria, who had many children. So in some ways, this is kind of a family war, and unfortunate. Okay, so moving on, nationalism. We've been talking a lot about nationalism in this course, and ever since Napoleon and the French Revolution, ideas about nationalism are going to like spread throughout Europe and really shape culture. Because remember, when you had all these foreign powers in charge, like with Napoleon putting all his different relatives on thrones, people realized that what was really important to them is having leaders and countries that shared their ethnicity, their beliefs, their culture. So this growing sense of nationalism helps convince people to go to war a lot easier because it's all about defending your group, your culture at the expense of everything else. And this kind of like very toxic approach comes about where you value the needs of your country over that of everyone else, no matter the cost to them. And one place we'll see a lot of growing nationalism are these different states in the Balkans. And so the Balkans has been ruled over by the Ottoman Empire for the last 400 years or so, but there's a lot of different groups in the Balkans, like Albanians, Greeks, Romans, and different Slavic people. And each group is kind of struggling for their own independence. And some of them will be successful. Now, Austria Hungary is going to annex Bosnia as one of their territories in 1908. And Serbia is also a newly independent state. And they think that Bosnia should be one of their territories because they are all Slavic people. So it doesn't make sense to them that they would go to Austria Hungary. Now, the last piece we'll talk about for our main causes of World War I is imperialism. So Europe has been in fierce competition with each other to control as much land and resources in Asia and Africa as possible. And, France and Britain already had really strong colonial policies in place because they had experience having colonies before and they kind of got there first. So Germany is a little bit later to this game and therefore they're more aggressive in their policies. And we'll see some clashing happen with places like France, for example, in the Moroccan incident, where we see a lot of increased tension and competition over these colonies in Africa and Asia. And it leads to a lot of distrust and competition. So here's a look at kind of where everybody stands from a global standpoint. Why we call this a major world war is because of all the different colonies that are going to have to be involved because these European countries have decided to go to war against each other. Next, we'll take a look at the spark that actually ignites what's called the powder keg in the Balkans. Okay, so we talked about how Bosnia has now been under the control of the Austro-Hungarian Empire since around 1908. Now, the Archduke of the empire, Franz Ferdinand, who is next in line to the throne, went on a tour of Bosnia, kind of like a meet and greet sort of thing to welcome them to the empire. But remember, many Serbs want to be part of other Serb countries. So we see like Bosnia, they want Bosnia to be part of Serbia. A lot of people do. And there's actually nationalist groups that have been created to try to promote that. And one of these groups is the Black Hand, who is kind of like a Serbian terrorist group in a way. So what happens is Ferdinand, he goes to take a tour. He's in his car. Of course, it's a convertible. It just seems like politicians should never ride in convertibles based on what we know from history. But he's riding along in this convertible. And this man right here in the picture, Gavrilo Princip, he shoots him and his wife while they're driving through, kind of getting a tour of Bosnia. So Austria-Hungary, they're very upset by this. They create this long list of demands that they give to Serbia, and they're like, you need to meet all of these demands. And it amounts to a lot of things that Serbia just cannot handle as like a new country. They don't have the money, they don't have the resources. And you're up against the Black Hands, who's not a government group. They're a like Serbian terrorist group. So Austria is not satisfied with the way that they're handling everything, so they declare war on Serbia. And this triggers the whole alliance system because the whole, thing with the alliance system is that if anybody in your alliance system goes to war, it triggers a response from everybody else in the system. So this means that Germany, who's allied with Austria-Hungary, they declare war on Serbia, and Serbia has an alliance with Russia. So that means that Russia declares war on Austria-Hungary and Germany, and kind of the list goes on and on until pretty much most of Europe is now involved in this conflict. So now that we know how the war is started, let's look at some of the technology that's going to have a major impact on how this war is carried out. Now, one piece of the Industrial Revolution that we've talked about before, it's what allowed Europeans to be able to carve out empires so far away from their homeland, is the development of new weapons and technology that creates a lot more destruction than old warfare techniques did. So we'll see advancements in technology occurring at a rapid rate before and even during the war itself. And then it'll cause people to have to fight in very new ways. So, trench warfare will be a big result from that as they have to kind of hide themselves from this new technology. And then, because of that trench warfare, World War I turns into what's called a war of attrition. It's a war that's mostly a stalemate where neither side's really gaining much territory or land. They're really just trying to outlast everyone else. And here's a list of some of those new weapons and, just different pieces of technology that'll make a big difference during World War I. We've got things like machine guns now, flamethrowers and grenades. You've got new vehicles that are going to help you with travel and with warfare in like submarines, tanks, and airplanes. And then environmental changes. We're going to see the introduction of barbed wire, poison gas, and then eventually gas masks to help protect against that. So just the idea that these weapons are largely more destructive than things that were in existence even 50 years ago. I mean, if you think back to the 1860s, pretty much none of these things really existed at that point. So this is all very fresh, new technology. Okay, and that's where we will leave off today. Next time, we'll look more into the actual fighting of World War I itself. Thanks for watching.